As a family financial advisor for the last 20 years, these are the 7 things that I tell my clients that they need to have when they retire, and I wanted to share this list with you as well. The first one sounds mundane. You have to have a car, but it's a car for each person. Don't try to save money and share a car, because you know what's more expensive than paying for 2 cars for insurance and fuel and everything else, registration. You know what's more expensive than all of that? A divorce. Having your freedom is just part of the American experience. We are a car-based society. Don't try to save a couple dollars by getting down to 1 car. Each of you, if you're married, needs to have your freedom and that flexibility. The number 2 one, of course, is insurance. Primary amongst those is healthcare insurance, right? If you're retiring before 65, if you're not on Medicare yet, if you've left your company and you're retired now, how are you gonna get your healthcare insurance? So it sounds obvious, but one of the biggest classes of uninsured people are people that are transitioning away from their company and they think they're on Medicare right away, but they're not. So just be super careful that you get that transition right. Oftentimes where that happens is somebody leaves their company, they plan when they left to retire and they're planning to use COBRA, which is how you can keep on your employer's insurance, you have to pay it yourself, and then transition to Medicare. But be double dog sure that you've got the numbers right, because you don't want to have a month where the COBRA runs out, but Medicare hasn't kicked in. So obviously healthcare insurance, obviously car insurance if you're gonna own a car. And then one thing to think about now, I'm not an insurance person, I'm not licensed to sell insurance. I don't wanna be licensed to sell insurance, but something to think about is long-term care insurance. Unfortunately, 80% of us that reach the age of 65 are gonna need long-term care insurance at some point in our lives. So that's a high probability. Now the challenge is, long-term care insurance can be expensive and there's a lot of exclusions and the rules are always changing. So some of my clients decide to be self-insured and some of my clients decide that, you know what, I do want to have the insurance. Obviously in your 20s, it's too early to buy long-term care insurance. And when you're 80, it's probably too late to buy long-term care insurance. So there is an age where it makes sense to do that. And, you know, for a lot of people looking at long-term care insurance in their 50s for what happens when they get older, that tends to be a nice spot to begin thinking about it. Again, reach out to a licensed insurance broker and talk about that. Okay, speaking of health, the next thing I want you to own is I want you to own your health. Own your healthcare insurance, but also own your health. Take responsibility for it. Until we get to 80 years old, so much of our health, for most of us, is gonna be dictated by our lifestyle choices. You know, are we doing a relatively good job of going to the gym and working out? Are we doing a relatively good job of eating well most of the time? Are we investing our mental energy? Are we investing our time? Are we investing our dollars in better food? Buying high quality food from the grocery store, taking the time to grocery shop, or do what I do. The grocery store I use doesn't charge me anything extra. I order everything online and I pull up, they put it in my trunk of my car and off I go. So invest time, invest energy, do what you can to keep your health in place. Let me just highlight how important this is. So I've been fortunate enough, I know several billionaires, and so at least I know the answer for them. You know, would they rather have their health or would they rather have their wealth? And they don't even blink an eye. Of course they'd rather have their health. Right? Once your health is gone, it's oftentimes impossible to get it back, particularly as we get older. So if you're a billionaire, I know what your answer is, but most of us aren't billionaires. But I know what I think your answer should be, which is you'd rather have your health. And for most of us, that's just not going to come naturally. We have to work at it. So own your health. It also gives you more energy and you can go out and enjoy life. So own your health. The next one is an emergency fund. And sometimes people are surprised to hear me say this as a financial advisor, because one of the reasons to have an emergency, kind of a rainy day fund, typically they have 3 to 6 months of living expenses. I'm a big proponent of, while you're working, an emergency fund having 1 year's worth of living expenses. And that's a lot. It's hard for people to do. In fact, half of all Americans say that they could not afford a unexpected $1,000 expense. Don't let that be you. Start saving if you don't have that now. Do you need a year's emergency fund? The reason I think when you're working, it's nice to have a year, particularly as you're getting older, is it takes longer to find a good job. And do you want a job or do you want the best job for you? The one that you're passionate about? Getting up in the morning and working at, and if you're passionate about the job, that you're gonna be more successful. So I think a year is nice just because it takes the pressure off to take the first job that comes along. But what about in retirement? You don't have a job that you have to worry about. I still think it makes sense to have a 3 to 6 month emergency fund, maybe closer to 3 months. None of this is financial advice for your specific situation, right? I encourage you to work with a fee-only financial advisor. You can just Google that term and find somebody to work with. So I don't know your situation, but I do think most of us should have 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund, because maybe the emergency is the stock market's down and we don't want to take money out of our stock market account in order to pay expenses, in order to have the cash flows that we need coming in. So actually in that regard, you should have quite a bit more than 3 or 6 months. And most people would plan for that through their asset allocation. What percent of their portfolios in stocks, what percent's in bonds. But it is nice, the stock market goes down, to know, you know what, I've got 6 months until I start taking money out of bonds because I have this emergency fund. And people will disagree with me about whether the stock market being down is an emergency. Now, I'll tell you this, it is an emergency if you feel it's an emergency, right? I want to take the edge off of that feeling. And so having an emergency fund, and personally, I'll let you inside the tent of my household, I keep probably 5%, 7% additional cash in my asset allocation. And the reason is when the stock market goes down, I like to be able to pick up bargains. I look at downturns in the market differently. If I think, you know what, I can take advantage of it. This company that I've always liked is now quote unquote on sale, and I have something that I don't have to sell at a discount, and I've got cash and I can use that cash to buy that. So I like to have that. I know that I'm better off over a 10-year period, over an investment cycle, not holding that excess cash, but it is a security blanket for me to give me peace of mind when I need it, when scary things are happening in the market. Okay, the next one. For a lot of people, owning a home is a good thing to own in retirement. Not for everybody, but it gives you peace of mind, gives you security. It's nice to have that asset. If you live in California, I'm not an expert on your tax code, I don't live in California, but my understanding is through Proposition 13, your property taxes don't go up. So that can be a good thing as you're getting older, to just know what those expenses are. If you're renting, you don't know what your expenses are going to be when your lease comes up. Your landlord could, and since COVID, many landlords have been jacking up rents 15, 20, 25% a year. That's a big jump. So a lot of people like owning their home. Not only gives them peace of mind, but it's also nice to be able to nest and to relax and to know, if you want to paint the walls, you can paint the walls. If you want to put in a gas line to your barbecue grill, you can do that. When you rent, they kind of frown on you tapping into the natural gas line in your house. So the next one is, I want you to continue to own your sense of curiosity, your sense of passion, and your sense of adventure. For me, one of the ways that I do that is I'm a prolific reader. I tend to use Audible, so I should say I'm a prolific listener. You won't believe it, I'm listening all day long, like all of us are, right? But I like to listen to books. And I think books are one of the best bargains out there. You think about it, somebody spends a couple years of their life researching a topic. I like to read nonfiction books. You can buy that book for $25. And a secret is, on Audible, if you buy it in bulk, you can get it for under $10. It's absolutely insane. Not sponsored by Audible, but Jeff Bezos, if you'd like to sponsor me, I'd love to talk to you. Okay, but own that sense of passion, that sense of curiosity. I think it helps keep you young too. Keeps your mind in a positive state, and it just, at least for me, lots of good things come from having positivity around me. And then the last one, you're gonna chuckle at this, is my wife and I's favorite thing to own in retirement is pocket with a few dog cookies in it. My wife and I are both dog fans, and nothing brightens up your day than having a dog smell dog cookies in your pocket and come up and give you those big dog eyes and ask for a dog cookie. So puts joy in my heart. Whatever puts joy in your heart, add that to your list as well. And for those of you that aren't retired, I want you to think about watching this video up here. I made it to encourage people to be thoughtful and deliberate about when they retire. It's called 5 Reasons to Retire as Soon as Possible. I'll see you in there. Thanks for watching this video. Bye-bye.